Hello, nice to meet you. My name is Paul.
Hello, nice to meet you. It is such an honor for me to be inside the all-new Tucson with you today.
Are you ready for the all-new Tucson? It delivers unprecedented driving performance in its class, made possible by Hyundai's innovative, world-leading technologies.
All right.
The brand new Hyundai Tucson. This is a complete rework from the previous generation. It's bigger on the inside, it looks bigger on the outside, and boy, did they make some serious revisions. The last generation just kind of blended in. It looked clean, it looked cohesive. This looked like they got a bunch of year-olds together in the studio and said, wow, that looks cool under certain light or on a computer. It is just so awkward looking from every angle. All the creases, all the folds in the sheet metal on such a bulbous looking vehicle. I think what they intended to do didn't really come out the greatest in reality. So if you like the style, I don't know, this might be for you. It definitely looks much different than everything else. And some of that quirkiness carries over to the interior. Now, the dashboard is wide. It has a smaller, compact design. The material choice is pretty good. It's very comfortable in here. Visibility is good, and it is ultra quiet. Seat adjustment is what you expect. You have a lumbar adjustment. You could be a big person and fit in here. I think that's what I'm getting at. And the adjustability of the steering wheel makes it easy if you're a tiny, petite person as well. The technology in terms of screens looks good, high resolution, good black levels, and the core functions of the Hyundai infotainment is one of the best in the business, along with the safety suite. Now, what they have done in this generation is completely destroyed all the usability in the center stack by going to completely touch controls. There are no physical controls for your tuning, volume, power buttons, HVAC, and this is one of the things. Hyundai jumps back and forth and back and forth. It's never the same thing twice, and it's a big letdown, along with the fact that they continue to use high contrast or glossy materials in the biggest touch point areas of the car is just unacceptable. It's really bad, and I'm just going to leave it at that. So if you're okay with all of that, there is a great thought to storage in the center stack. The armrest has a good amount of storage. The door pockets have a good place. The audio system is pretty average in here overall. The back seat room, not bad. And the hatch space is what you expect in a vehicle like this, but it is bigger on the inside than the last Tucson. And if you look at it that way, you're getting more for your money. And when you start looking at the price, which we'll talk about in a bit, it is far more acceptable for some of the deficiencies in design. Let's head into the shop and talk about the technical stuff. So, you got to hear about the interior. I don't see any weird geometry or touch screens under here, Jack.
Well, this is my favorite angle of this car, Mark.
Yeah, it's actually the most functional. Look, you can get to the oil filter, you can get to the drain plug, you can see everything here.
And Mark, we're wearing our favorite brand of clothes because we're sponsored.
Yeah, no, we're not sponsored. Patagonia doesn't sponsor anything, but Jack dressed me this morning. I don't even know what I'm wearing. The only thing I pick out now are my socks.
I buy all of his clothes, including your underwear.
Oh yeah, well, that's why they're 10 sizes too small. But anyway, we're under the Tucson, Jack. What's changed since the one I looked at years ago?
So this is the 2022 model. It is wider, it is taller, and it is longer, which means it should ride a little bit better. They've prioritized things like NVH, but it is still essentially a very similar car, which means it still has an on-demand all-wheel drive system. It still can be had as only front-wheel drive. It is still strut front, multi-link rear, and you have 3 drivetrain options. You have a plug-in hybrid variant. You have a hybrid variant, which is the 1.6 liter, which produces the most amount of horsepower out of their entire lineup and has the best fuel range at 500 miles to a tank. Then you have this, which is their naturally aspirated 2.5 liter, which is found in other Hyundai Kia products, and it is port and direct injected, and it has an 8-speed automatic.
Where's the CVT?
They don't have a CVT.
What?
I know, it's disappointing, Mark.
Tucson.
Show me, Mark.
Imagine driving at night and seeing these lights in your rearview mirror. Pretty cool, isn't it? We call this integrated architecture.
I've been shown, Mark.
Not until we get air. Good enough. So, 2.5 liter, naturally aspirated, dual injection, port and direct, which is a big deal for longevity. I'm glad they got on that bandwagon. And you have an 8-speed torque converted automatic transmission. So this is almost old school feeling. I feel like that is what makes this better than some of the competition, because it feels a lot more natural to drive. It feels more comfortable to drive. In some ways, it's never doing anything you don't expect. It is a quiet experience. Like you mentioned to me, it is very quiet and probably a little bit quieter than the RAV4, right?
Yeah. To me, what this does well is that the motor is less rattly than the RAV4. I'm not saying it's a better motor, but in your interior volume, you have less of the engine noise. The 8-speed automatic seems to be a little bit faster to react, and the overall packaging of this car feels quite good. It's very large, it's a very airy cabin, there's a ton of glass, but we do have some complaints when it comes to ride quality, I think.
I think if you're looking at this at $25,000, there's nothing wrong with it. I think the front end is a little bit too stiff, and this is just my personal feeling driving it. I feel like there's too much, there's like a turbulence, a shock effect that it sends
like too
through
much
the
rebound
cabin.
in the front.
Yeah, it just feels too stiffly sprung, and when you're on like normal pavement, you don't even notice it. But it's when you get on these like expansion joints or like brakes in pavement, it just sends this shock wave through the front of the car to the back, and it's not bad. It really is not that.
We're splitting hairs. It's
right.
very negligibly different.
For $25,000 to $30,000, this thing handles really good.
Mm-hmm.
The body control's great. It really is, and I think some of that body control, they made a trade-off there to make it a little bit stiffer, so it doesn't feel like a total boat and like flopping around everywhere. And don't get me wrong, this is a slower reacting vehicle. It is definitely more on the softer side overall, but it's comfortable. There's a lot of glass in here, or at least the perceived visibility is good, and the drivetrain is excellent for this.
And the on-demand all-wheel drive system, you can choose to lock it in 50-50 when you're in bad weather, and on the regular
if you're
roads,
stuck
it puts
in
power
like
down.
snow or whatever, at least you have that option to flip it over to that, and it's not going to hold 50-50 for long periods of time, but at least it's there as an option. So it gives it that more, I don't know, it's like Hyundai and Kia are trying to give this more off-road capability, like feel to their products than is really there. These are not like hardcore.
No, this is not
products.
like a Jeep Wrangler or a
No,
Ford Bronco.
but it's the urban all-wheel drive system, and for most people, this is going to be completely
and the
fine.
safety features in this car still work amazingly. I think they're probably, and we talk about this all the time, in this price point of sub $40,000 non-luxury brand, Hyundai, Kia probably do the best safety suite in a car.
Yeah, no, it's really good. It is really the best stuff out there until you get into like higher end products. And I think that's a big pro to this if you're looking at the safety aspect. And you're obviously buying this as a family hauler. I talked about the interior and the exterior problems I have with this, but in terms of drivability, this is really the highlight right here.
Yeah. My problem though, and I think I talked to you a little bit about this off camera, is this car to me feels hyper generic.
It is.
Not because it's a bad car. In many ways, it's far superior to many of its competitors, but it doesn't feel like there's a lot of personality here. Like the RAV4 has kind of that weird truckishness about it. Chunky interior, weirder, more truck-like exterior styling, and there are lots of different flavors of that vehicle.
Yeah.
Where this, it just feels very, I'm going to forget about it once I get out of it.
I agree. I said this about other Hyundai and Kia videos now, that I think they're watering their brand down and trying too many different things where they no longer have a brand identity. I don't remember what they're doing. The changes from generation to generation are so extreme now that it's just like, it's like completely different people work on every single product and there's no cohesion, which means it just makes me forget about it. And this is another one. If you didn't tell me, if you didn't tell me this was a Tucson, I would never guess compared to the last generation. And I think they're trying to do too much at this point. And of course, that's something normal people would never talk about. Like this is a conversation that we're going to have that's going to go over most people's heads. As a product, as an affordable product, it does everything that you would expect. It's just becoming a hyper generic like Hyundai SUV thing.
Exactly. So with that, Mark, I think it's time for us to get on the final thoughts.
All right. Final thoughts on the Tucson. If you've seen my last Tucson video, you'll know I loved it. I loved it because it was cohesive. It had an interesting exterior style without going off the deep end, and the interior was completely functional while providing great value. Take a look at this thing. It's everything I hate in a vehicle, but because it's an SUV or a CUV, Hyundai and Kia have the ability to constantly reinvent the wheel. So now you have all this geometry and weirdness in the exterior panels. It looks way more modern and fresh. Obviously, it's not going to age well. The interior space looks vastly more modern. And when I say modern, I mean it has a high wow factor. You get in, you're like, oh, look at all this tech I'm getting. Between $25,000 and $35,000, you are getting a lot for your money here, and everything does work. It's just such a polarizing car in terms of exterior and interior usability, which I just rambled on about in the interior segment. I'm not going to go over that. So it's going to be up to you. There are some huge pros to this. It rides good. It drives good. It's also got a ton of options in terms of all-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, hybridization, no turbo, no CVT. I mean, that part, they have you covered. And they have you covered for a lot less than some of the other competitors. So if that's what you're out for, the ultimate value and a little bit of quirkiness, or I'm sorry, a lot of quirkiness, this is the Tucson for you.
I can really see myself in the all-new Tucson. I sure hope Hyundai can. Now let's catch one last wave back to where we started. See you at the beach.